lovely to have you all here today. As I said before, I'll be using the Floral Pocket Petals, and I have introduced just a few of the candles as well because I hadn't used them yet and I couldn't resist. And I think it makes for a lovely fun card. So this is the card I'll be making today. We've got a little rogue star there. Look, one of these little die cuts from the centre of the candle. This little star, I'm going to be finding these forevermore. Actually, one thing I was thinking of, I'll just say it now while I remember. When I was tidying up, I found so many of these little die cuts from the inserts of this die here. If I just bring that up to the camera so you can actually see what it is I'm talking about. What actually might be worth doing is keeping all of these. You can see that little tiny little star there, and we have little hearts. Keep all of these in perhaps a little tub. I don't know if you have a little one of these spare tubs that we perhaps keep gems in. Just collect them all and put them in there. Then you'll end up with sort of confetti to use on any of your cards, in any of your shaker cards, or just little embellishments to stick sort of on your cards, because you could perhaps dot them about in amongst the design like that. So yeah, that's just one little thing to bear in mind. Okay, so this is the card, as I say, we'll be making today. I'll be using this set. Now this set is a die set, but it does come with its coordinating stamps, and it will be the stamps that I'll be using today. This set actually came out, I don't know if you remember, with the nesting or the nested pockets, and this was a lovely set that to go alongside with it. But if you weren't able to get hold of the pockets, or you just perhaps want just to find a use just for the stamps, because maybe some people lean towards using the dies more, but you actually want to find a use for the stamps other than sort of arranging floral arrangements, then this should be quite interesting for you actually, because I'm actually creating a pattern with them that isn't necessarily floral. I mean, you can make it floral, you can add leaves, the die cut leaves and whatever, but this, I just wanted to create a stamped background just to add a little bit of colour, and just to make something fun. So when you can team it with any of your dies, but particularly with your bold sentiments and the candles, I think it makes something really fun, perhaps for teenagers, for younger children, anybody obviously. It doesn't, I'm sort of stereotyping a little bit there, but sometimes sort of certain age groups we do struggle with. And also, if you change the colours that you're stamping with, then this is perfect for a man's card. And I have made one from a guy using just blues, and I shall bring that in at the end for you to have a look at. So what I've done also, this card, I couldn't actually make up my mind. It'll be interesting to know what you think. I couldn't make up my mind with the bold sentiments here, whether I liked the sentiment with the backing on it or not. I think my initial thoughts were just to have it like that. But I think it works either way. I think it depends on who you're giving it to, and perhaps how the colours work down the side here. But I think either way works, and because it coordinates with the candles, I think it looks really pretty. And of course, this is Lisa's holographic satin card, so it's got that amazing holographic and reflection on there. Let's get going, shall we? Let me put that over to one side so you can keep that in view. So it's a square card, and again I'm using Lisa's super smooth card. I'm using Lisa's inks again today, of course, but I'm actually using the pigment inks. The pigment inks are in the white casing, and they have VP on the lid there, so you can tell them apart. Now these are predominantly made really to capture fine detail, as Lisa says on the front here, and that is for stamping. Now it doesn't mean that you can't blend with these, and it doesn't mean that you can't stamp with the other blending inks, but they do have their properties which lends themselves to different techniques. So these ones in particular will give you a really lovely impression, particularly if you're going onto a super smooth card. Okay, as I say, I'll be using the Pocket Floral Petals. Now this does come with a die set, and it comes with a huge plate of stamps actually. Now the stamps are a repeat of a couple of designs. You've got these larger, bolder colours, and you have these outlined of the flowers. Now it's so useful to have so many variations in size of one stamp, because it allows you to layer It allows you to build really amazing 3D sort of dimensional flowers, as you can see the way that Lisa's actually demonstrated on the front of the packaging for us. But it does allow us to create some really interesting stamped background as well. Plus we have these little accents which we can use to dot about the design as well. So I'm going to keep these on the carrier and just peel them off as I need them. Let's put that on the side there. Now I'm working with the Ultimate in the background. If you are happier to stamp using the Ultimate as a platform, then by all means do. I shall be using small acrylic blocks because I'll be swapping the stamps in and out, but there's nothing to say that you can't mount your stamp on the platform and just stamp each time. Either method will work. I think for me today, my go-to is usually the acrylic blocks, and it will just be a little bit easier and perhaps quicker for me to move between the different stamps for you today. So let me get going. I've got a selection of colourful inks today. I might not use them all, I might use some of them. I always have the grey on hand because the grey is a useful accent just to ground a lot of the colours. I like to use 3 main colours, so it's maybe I'll swap the blue for purple in this one just to add some, add something a little bit different. Basically what we're doing, we are working in a strip. Now you can make this as large or as small as you want. You can go diagonally, you can do half, you can go all over. As I say, it's like most of my lives, it's about me showing you different ideas and you can adapt them to suit the project that you're making. So I'm going to start off with the bolder designs. Now these are the ones that are in black. Now when you see these, they look a bit intimidating being black on the stamp plate, but do remember that the black will be replaced by colour when you ink the stamp, and it gives a really fabulous sort of impression. Now when I come to ink the stamps, I always find, and I always go back to it this way, I always take the ink pad to the stamp and just really light tapping, so I don't need to really squidge, excuse the technical terms there, I really don't need to squidge the ink pad into the stamp because you'll flood all the detail. So just really light tapping, and this way, especially working against the white background, you can see when the whole of the stamp has actually been covered, then you know that you're ready to stamp. So as I say, I'm going to be working in like just one strip there. You could mask it off if you wanted to. I don't necessarily need to. I'm not going to be so rigid because I might just sort of go a little bit outside of that. But just start off by putting your first impression down. Now, we do tend to work in 3s in any sort of design, don't we? So I would say initially we want to put down 3 designs of each colour that you're using. Now, in doing that, I am also... Sorry, I've just got mucky there already. I'll just wipe that because otherwise I'll end up with pink all over the card. So I'm going to use a different sized stamp now. Come back in with the pink, ink that up, and just move that a little bit further away. And this is basically creating our structure. It's going to work out completely different to the way I've stamped it here, and I think this is what's great about this particular type of stamping. Now what I will do, I'm going to come in with one of the flowers, so one of the spotty flowers. So this is going to add a completely different element, still in pink, and I'm just going to stamp that up there, and you can see sort of where now my strip is going to be. So let's bring in a different colour and a different size. Now it could be that in doing this you will use absolutely every stamp on the plate, and that would be great. And it means that this is actually scalable to all different sizes of cards. You can do this on a teeny little card. This would work on one of the DL cards if you're using one of the DL die sets that Lisa's brought out to us. It would work on a larger 8x8 card. I'm working on, I think it's about 5-inch square, the one that I'm working on. So this type of design really is scalable. So there, now I've just stamped a yellow, and if you noticed, I've just overlapped a little bit. That just adds to the randomness of it. It's so hard to get random stamping because you spend more time thinking, if I put it there, is it going to look random enough? If I put it there, it's honestly, random stamping is one of the hardest things that you'll ever do, contrary to its name. Actually, it's and it can be quite stressful thinking or wondering if you are actually random enough, but we'll do our best. I'm just going to clean my stamp a little bit there, so to take off some of that pink, and all I'm just doing is using a bit of water and a microfiber cloth. Just make sure then that the back of the stamp is dry, and that will re-cling to your acrylic block. So again, I'm coming in with a yellow because I want to stamp 3 impressions of each flower with each colour first, so I can just see where I'm going. Now this time I'm going to be stamping off the page slightly. What I'm going to do is just put this onto a piece of copy paper because I don't want the ink to go on my mat. It cleans off perfectly well. It's just me being me, to be honest. Again, we'll just clean that off a little bit. Now we'll do one more. What should we do? Actually, I might come in with a smaller yellow again, and I think because the yellow is a lot paler, I think I'll just stick with the bolder flowers in the yellow, and we'll come into that position there. Okay, so this card I actually used blue, and I said this time round I will use the purple, so let's stick to my word. I'll come in with a larger spotty flower. Oh. And we'll come in with a purple. Now if Dawn's watching, then she will definitely be saying go with the purple, because this is Dawn's favourite colour. It's not a colour I usually reach for. I should, because once I use it I think, oh, that looks lovely. So I'm going to stamp that in there. And you can see that I've actually overlapped that onto the yellow. And the purple looks lovely, actually. I shall come in with a smaller flower. Not that one, I think I'll use a different one. So you just change it up a little bit. Oh, I've just noticed. Hi, Mum, you made it. Hopefully, I know you've been out this afternoon. Hopefully it was nice and dry for you and you didn't get wet. So we stamp a purple there. Now immediately you can see straight that this is looking so different to this one here. I love the way this is turning out. Oh, hi Tina. Oh, it's nice to have you here as well, Tina. Okay, so coming back in with the yellow one. Now, actually talking to you while I'm doing this, it means that I'm not actually giving it an awful lot of thought, which means it actually builds up nice and quick. So maybe that's the way to do it. Because I say, when you're stamping randomly, the more you think about it, the more you sort of double, you question yourself. So it's possibly a good idea just to, you know, just sort of go with the flow. Now I think what I might start to do now is bring in some of the grey. That will just ground it a little bit, because I don't want, personally for me, I don't want to throw too many colours at this. And just by bringing in the grey, it fills up some of these gaps, but the colour isn't there to clash with everything else that's going on. I think it complements the rest of the colours really well. So I'm going to come in with the grey just there. And I think I've said in other times, sometimes you need an image that sort of blends into the background just to make everything else pop. It's one of those images you didn't know you needed there, needed it there, and sort of till it's there. And I think once you bear that sort of design detail in mind, it sort of brings a new element to what you're stamping. So I'm coming in with the grey again and making sure that I have like 3 elements of the grey also, like that. Now I think we need something in there, possibly. What colour shall I go for? Do you know what I think I might do? I might start bringing in some of these smaller elements. Can you see on the side here, we've got like these, what would be the centres of the flowers actually, but I'm going to just use them as spots. So I'm going to come in and I'm actually going to stamp a pink one and put that in the centre there to fill that space. And we do have some smaller ones as well. And as you can see, I'm doing a pretty good job of using nearly everything on this stamp plate. And it's always good if we can make all of our stash work for us. So I'm going to put that up there. And you can start using these just to fill in the spaces, and they sort of act as bubbles, I suppose. And I'm going to bring in some grey ones because I think they will start tying in some of these shapes together. And say I've just put that little grey one overlapping onto the yellow, and I think that just builds really nicely. Now what I will do in a second, I will come in with some black, and again what that will do is just make the images pop again, and that will just fill in some of the spaces. Now I don't want to overcrowd that, I don't think, at this stage. And what I will do, I shall come in with Lisa's black ink. It's still the Cloud 9, but it's known as the solid black. And this gives a really lovely crisp detail. Now the trick actually to stamping with this, with acrylic stamps and the black ink, is not to press too hard, because if you press too hard, you can really lose a lot of the detail. So I'm going to come in with one of these circles. Now at this stage I am actually going to take the small stamp to the ink pad and just gently tap so I know that that is inked fully. And I'm going to start stamping the black into the design. Hopefully you can see that as I go, this will start bringing and drawing your eye into certain areas of the design. You don't want too much, so it'll overpower. But again, if we just go in groups of 3, we give a really nice sort of detail that just ties everything all together. Now I've got a really tiny black spot here, which I'm going to use also, just to add little bits of highlight here. Now it doesn't need to be too much, one just down here and perhaps one over here as well. Again, you don't want to go too mad on that, I don't think. So I'm going to leave that there as it is, because now we need to sort of think about putting the sort of the sentiment and the focal point onto the card. If you think that this area needs anything more, you can always go back to it later. So as I said, I will actually wanted to bring in some of the candles as well, and I've already pre-cut some. I'm just using 3 candles. It doesn't matter how many you use. this is where you can start adapting it and making it personal to whoever you're making the card for, or just whatever sort of looks good. Now I've created the two of these with the reflective the satin holographic cards, so these really sort of pop, and hopefully when I can move these about in a minute you can see that they are actually a two-tone. Now, just to show you how the candles are put together if you're not familiar with this set. So this is the set itself. Again, it comes with dies and stamps, so really it's like a complete sort of card making set, sort of all in one. You really only need to add some sort of backing card and your inks to this, and you can sort of really get going. So we have our die sets. I've put them on a magnetic sheet. They don't come on a magnetic sheet, but this is just a nice easy way for me to keep track of where everything is. So you die cut the candle, the base of the candle, like so. Then you have all of the elements. Let me just bring this here. You have all of the elements to give the candle its character. So this is where like these inserts come into play here. So we have the stars, we have the polka dots, and here we have the hearts. So you can see that this just small die is what we use to make the stem of the candle. So I'm just going to build this one up for you as I go. I've already done the die cutting. Now, excuse me, my hands are not the most delicate, so I'll try not to obscure what I'm doing too much. So we have the design of the candle like so. So now we need to put the flame on, and this is what this little like teardrop die does for us. Now I'll just show you one trick when I actually make the flames. I got to the stage where my desk was so full of card and whatnot, and I didn't really have any space to move, and I really couldn't be bothered to look for some yellow cardstock, to be honest with you. So what I'd done, I took myself a piece of white card, a blending brush, and used Lisa's ink, and I created myself my own yellow cardstock. The advantage of doing this is obviously that the yellow now coordinates perfectly with the yellow that you've stamped on the card there. So and because it's such a small area that you're die cutting, it works so well. So when you can die cut those out, you have the yellow there. Now another thing to remember, actually, what I will do, I will die cut this because I want to show you just something else. Now what Lisa's done is forever the perfectionist. She's given us the option to layer even the small flames, as tiny as they are. She's given us 2 flame sizes so we can get that dimension on the flame. And what we can do, because we're using our own ink, before removing all of this from the die cutting plate, what we can do is actually use our die as a stencil. Now, we're so used to Lisa giving us stencils, and obviously this set doesn't have the stencils, but it doesn't mean that you can't use the dies. So if you come in with a stencil brush, and I will use some of this ink, before you remove the dies, just blend your ink through the stencil there. Now you can either use this ink or you can bring in the blending ink. That's entirely up to you. Particularly if you have more time, you can really take the time to sort of even get the shaded detail into these flames here. But by doing that and then bringing in just an even smaller stencil brush, tiny bit of pink, we can just go on to these tiny little areas where the small flames are and just add just a bit of shaded detail. What we can do, we can even just flick some of that pink ink just down at the bottom at the base of these flames as well. let's just do that a little bit more. That's what I'll do. If I can gently take this away, they'll all stay in place. Let me get myself a pokey tool so I can just take out these smaller ones here. Excuse my fingers for a second. And I think it's these little bits of attention to detail really elevate the designs on your card. So if I bring that up to you, you should be able to see, or perhaps even if I take away, let's take away the outside, because obviously that's the waist. And you can see how well that even these small dies of Lisa's work, I mean, we have the confidence that they are sort of perfect. You can see that we have a little bit of shading even on those flames, and I think that's just fantastic, isn't it? Just on the smallest, sort of probably the most tiniest area of the card, and you still have that detail. So I've already die cut myself some of those, and you can see there that I've just used a dab of glue and just layered those two areas up together. And what I can do now is just add that to the candle. I'll just put some glue there and get my pickup tool and just add that onto the candle. And those candles, you know, it's as simple as that to stamp. And I can keep these for later. Okay, so it's quite a straightforward card today. So now we come to the sentiment and actually building this card together. So I'm going to stick with the 3 candles. I have my sentiment there, which I've die cut. I mean, you could equally use the stamps from the candle set to stamp onto. I think this time I will add the sentiment onto a backing, because that will, so it doesn't get lost into the stamping here. And what we can do, I am going to just stick these down. Normally I wouldn't do this in a live, but I'm going to stick these candles down so I know that they're in place. There's just a couple more details I want to do just to finish this off and just pull the whole design together. Whoopsie daisies. And just pull this design together for you. Okay, that's those candles down. Now let me get something straight, like my ruler. There we are. Because what I want to do is just to make sure all those candles are lined up together before the glue sets too much. I'm just going to get my ruler and just push those so they are all at the same level. That's just easy little tips and things that just to make my eye happy when I come to just finishing off a card. Now, also in this candle set, we do have a tiny little set of sentiment stamps. Now these are the cutest little stamps, and they come in exactly the same sentiment but in different fonts. Both are just as pretty as each other, but I love this little type font. And what we can do, just to add another little bit of detail, this is entirely up to you whether you do this or not. And you have a choice of the sentiments that you use there. And you can see where I've stamped here. I think it just pulls the whole card together. So I'm going to stamp that. And stamp that sentiment just below the candles. Hip hip hooray. Which then means we can layer our sentiment underneath. And I think that is just a really nice touch. And I think just to pull in and just allow this design to flow into everything else, we can just choose another of these smaller sentiments, ones that you wouldn't perhaps necessarily use as the main sentiment on the card, and just add them into the design, like so. And I think it's just a lovely way to use these extra words. You can be a little bit cheeky with some of them, because I know there's a few things that a little bit tongue-in-cheek that Lisa's given to us, so I think they're just lovely to add into this sort of detail here, and put one in there. And I think that really finishes it off, especially as you're using the black in this part of the design also. Now, what I think really finishes this card is when you actually put it on the base and you have the matten layer, which way round? Yeah, and you have that against the dark frame, and I think that really finishes off that card. Now, I do appreciate actually that this card is super shiny, so let me just hold that in place and just, oh yeah, you can see the detail on that, and that would really flashes actually and catches that light, doesn't it? Actually looks so different on camera than the way I'm seeing it, because it's actually silver in the back and quite pinky on the front. I really like that idea. Now, as you can see, it does actually look very different to the one that I've done there. And I think these are really nice for batch making as well. You can actually sort of stamp these out quite quick. And let me just bring in the other card that I made. Now, this has such a dramatic effect, but I think it's a really lovely card for a guy as well. And I've gone quite heavy on the black. So don't be frightened of the stamping of the black in there, but I think that's what really sort of pulls together all the blues. And who would have thought that these were actually flower stamps? Now, on this guy's card, I haven't used the spotty flowers, but I think you can possibly get away with that. I think that would work. And I've added a little bit of bling on there. This is Lisa's glitter card, the black glitter card. And oh yeah, you can see actually on camera there, can't you? And you've got the silver holographic there in the background also. I think that just works really, really well. So thanks so much for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody, and I shall see you again soon.